Hey everyone, welcome back to Your Money Matters. I'm Angela Jarrell, your host and publisher of the Bauman Letter. And joining me are Clint Lee, our research analyst, and Ted Bauman, our editor. Now, of course, our job here at the Bauman franchise is to find opportunities for you. One way we do that is through the Bauman Letter. There's a link below if you'd like more information. But we also deliver some value, and Clint's going to get into some more details here in a minute, through our videos and through our free e-letter, Bauman Daily. So Clint, let's take a look at some of these opportunities you've been looking at and you've been telling people about.
Yeah, I want to go back to something Ted and I both wrote about during the week of Thanksgiving in our Bauman Daily. As you mentioned, we were visiting the commodities complex, specifically within metals, looking at copper and platinum, with basically the catalyst being the renewable energy space. For copper, Ted talked about how, in a conventional car, you have 20 pounds of copper being used, but in an electric vehicle, that jumps up to over 180 pounds. And so as we see the growth in electric vehicles out there, the implications that has for copper demand. And then I took a similar angle on the renewable space with platinum, because we're seeing a lot of interest now in the hydrogen economy. And I mean, Europe alone has unleashed a plan to invest over 500 billion in green hydrogen. And platinum is a key metal used not only in fuel cells and hydrogen fuel cells, but also in the process to extract hydrogen for later use in those fuel cells. So, that was sort of the big picture thinking around those two themes. But, just in this last week or so, we've seen both of those recommendations jump up about 10% or so. And that's because we're getting help from a shorter term catalyst, and that's the dollar. A lot of these metals are priced in dollars. So when the dollar weakens, foreign currencies can buy more of the stuff. And so I'll show a chart of the dollar right here just to illustrate my point. This goes back about a year or so, and you can see after sort of this consolidation process following a decline throughout the summer, we're breaking back down on the dollar here again, kind of cutting below that really important $92 level. And as we've done that, we've seen all of a sudden these metals, these commodities start to shoot higher. And so I'll show you another chart right here. This is the copper ETF that Ted recommended, COPX. And you can see, what I'm circling with the orange circle on here, is sort of that same consolidation. When the dollar was moving sideways, but then as the dollar weakened, we saw this ETF shoot higher. And if you think you've missed the boat on these ETFs, when you pan out, what you'll see is that these commodities have been in this long-term, multi-year bottoming process. And so here's a 10-year chart of the same ETF of COPX, and you can see we kind of did this double bottom with what the first one reached 4 years ago, back in 2016. So once again, this long-term bottoming process that we are still just in the very early innings of emerging from. And same thing with platinum. I'll show you the same two charts on platinum. Here's the shorter-term chart. You see something similar. We had we've had this consolidation, but then this key breakout here just recently. But when you pan out and you look at the 10-year view, you can see since, once again, 2016. Platinum has been working on this bottom and this bottoming process, and would have to, nearly double from here to get back to the prior highs from about 8 years ago or so.
All right. Now, Ted, we wrote a bit about platinum, we wrote a bit about copper. Both of those are working out very well. What else do you see on the horizon here?
Well, one thing I see is that Clint said the word double bottom, and I thought we'd agreed we would never say that again. Anyway, yeah. So metals and commodities are a perfect example of how we're looking for short-term opportunities, and the interplay between the dollar, but also the fundamental drivers, as Clint has pointed out. There are fundamental drivers behind both of those metals, and it's going to be really good for anybody who gets in now. And it's going to be a long-term secular upward trend. I'm convinced it's going to carry on, and that's because it is complemented by another trend, and that is what's happening in the global shipping industry. A lot of people don't think about shipping because it's all around us, but containers, for example, shipping containers are like the red blood cells of the global economy. I mean, nothing happens. There is no life without those things. And what's been happening lately is that with all the money that's been pumped into the US economy during the stimulus, combined with the fact that everybody's staying home and therefore needs to acquire things that facilitate being at home, computers, chairs, monitors, home improvement stuff, all the kinds of things that people have been buying hand over fist all summer, those things need to come from somewhere, and they come through the global shipping network. And the interesting thing is that the global shipping network was in a cyclical decline in 2019. And so at the beginning of 2019, it was already, capacity was being reduced. And then when COVID hit, everybody kind of backed off, assuming that the world was going to come to an end. And exactly the opposite happened. We saw an uptick in shipping of physical goods and services because people, even with the stimulus, whether they have jobs or were using stimulus, they needed stuff. And so what we've seen is just a dramatic uptick in the fortunes of the shipping industry. Here, I want to show you a chart. This shows container imports to the port of Los Angeles, which is, I think, the biggest one, either that or San Diego. And you can just see that this year, 2020, just blows everything else away. The second chart shows another aspect of this, and that is Class 8 truck orders. This is orders for new vehicles, the classic 18-wheelers. We haven't seen demand like this since, an increase in demand like this since 2018. A third chart just shows the level of the number of orders. And again, we are at all-time or at least 5-year highs in terms of the demand for Class 8 trucks. Now, what that tells me is that there are many opportunities that are hidden when you're just focused on things like the latest technology stocks. If you're just focused on what's happening with Zoom, or you're, obsessed with Tesla or whatever it is, that's great. You can make money on those. But here are some real world opportunities that are, in a sense, guaranteed. I mean, some companies like, some of the electrical vehicle companies, they go up, they go down, it's all speculative. This is a sure thing. I mean,
right.
When we get the vaccines out, people are going to start buying stuff again, and we will expect to see this trend continue. So last chart I'm going to show you is what's happening with the global, or rather XTN, which is an ETF showing global transportation investments. And as you can see on the top right-hand corner that I've circled, it's just taken off since the end of October. The short-term trend line is just, up enormously, and we expect to see that continue. So another opportunity there, and to me, it's one that is a bellwether for other things happening in the economy, but it's an opportunity in its own right. It may not be as glamorous. It may not give you, 1,000% returns in a year like Tesla, but then again, it's also probably not going to lose, 500 or 50%, in the matter of a couple of days. That's not the way things work in the real economy.
Yeah, how many of these trucks and containers are shipping toilet paper?
Well, it's funny. If you go on Amazon right now, the only stuff that's available is like in 6 weeks from now from Chinese manufacturers, and it's all coming in those containers. In fact, an interesting point is that there's such a shortage of empty containers in China right now to ship stuff back that they are actually, in a sense, finagling ways to get empty containers shipped back to China from the West Coast to the US, and making it impossible for farmers to get enough space to ship goods to China. That's how desperate they are for the containers. They're willing to forego imports. So if you can find a play on containers, that's the one you want.
Speaking of a play on containers, perfect segue, we will be writing about that in our next issue of Bauman letter, and that goes to print next week. So if you're interested in finding out more there is a link below. Ted, you zeroed in on a company, and just a quick teaser, how high do you think this one could go?
You could double your money in the next 18 to 24 months, but it's also got a fantastic yield, and that's going to compound, and you're going to do very well. And again, like I said, this is not something that is speculative. It's going to happen because, like I said, these are the red blood cells of the world economy. And with the vaccines on the way, the economy is going to want to get up and go out and exercise.
All right, with that in mind, sign up now. Ted, Clint, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.